Welcome to the training video about preparation for adulthood. This is an introduction to the new guidance and the new paperwork. My name's Helen Burgess and I'm the Preparation for Adulthood Programme Manager.
And my name's Cheryl Gorn. I'm the Assistant Head at Talbot Specialist School and the Head for Fusion Teaching School Alliance.
Today we'll be talking about preparation for adulthood. In this we will cover what preparation for adulthood is, why it is important and how to support young pupils with SEND. We'll also show you tools that can help you have preparation for adulthood conversations with your pupils. This training is specifically designed for SENCOs in secondary schools and post-16 settings. Before we go into the details, it's important to understand why we need to help young people with special educational needs prepare for adulthood. All young people may need to think about the plan for their adult life. Young people with SEND will have additional and different barriers that they will face in successfully becoming an adult. We want to help young people to prepare and to plan and get the best out of their adult life. It's all about helping young people achieve their goals and ambitions. We also need to help young people prepare for adulthood, and it's our responsibility of schools, colleges, local authorities, health and care partners to work with young people and their families. This is set out in the Code of Practice. Our job is to help young people make their own decisions about their adult life.
When we are thinking about preparation for adulthood, we want young people, with their support from their families and carers, to think about what they would like as an adult, how they will get there, and what support and help they will need to do this. Preparation for adulthood planning should start in Year 9, as cited in the SEND Code of Practice. It is a legal duty to do this for the young person that has an EHC plan. Discussions as part of the EHC plan annual review should continue until the young person has left full-time formal education. It should involve the young person, their family, school or college, and, as well as this, the support services from across education, health and care. There are lots and lots of conversations that we can have with our young people around preparation for adulthood. They can take place in annual reviews, but this is not the only place that those conversations can happen. We think about the daily conversations in the classroom, those continuous conversations that we have with parents and carers, as well as the young people themselves. We have parents' evenings, and we also have transition meetings throughout the year. As part of preparation for adulthood conversations, it is also important to think about the curriculum the young person needs to access to prepare for adulthood and what may need to be covered beyond usual school subjects. Discussions should always be focused on the path that is needed to support the young person to be as independent and as successful as possible as an adult. The tools we are going to be sharing during this video have been developed for young people with educational healthcare plans, but the principles can be implemented for all young people with SEND.
There are 4 main areas that we need to look at for preparing for adulthood. These are employment, independent living, community inclusion and health. So let's firstly look at employment. This is about finding out what the young person wants to do in terms of work. Young people have told us that their aspiration is to have a job. For some young people with the most complex needs, this may not be possible, but our focus should be on the meaningful activities that a young person wants to do as an adult. We need to make sure that we are both aspirational and realistic in considering employment, thinking about what the young person is able to achieve and what type of opportunities may be available for them. When thinking about employment, we also need to identify the right post-16 pathway. This will mean we need to consider what qualifications the young person may need to achieve, as well as how training should be delivered. For example, through a vocational or academic course, or through a work-based training route, such as supported internship or an apprenticeship. In planning for employment, we'd expect the work experience in place wherever possible, and this can be tailored to the young person's needs. Next, we look at independent living. This is about understanding what skills a young person needs to develop to be as independent as possible and how they will develop those skills. For many young people, this is no different to those who do not have SEND. For example, learning how to use the washing machine, manage their money and make food. We'll also include independent travelling. Good planning should make sure that any barriers as being as independent as possible are addressed. It's also a time to think about what the young person will live as an adult, who they will want to live with, and what support they will need in order to achieve this. Local housing options should be considered and support provided to the family in finding the accommodation if needed. The third area is community participation. This looks at supporting young people in the local community, so looking at what sort of activities are available for them. This should include shopping, developing and maintaining friendships and relationships. To support these areas, an assessment under the Care Act may need to be completed as the young person moves towards being 18. It will be established what support is needed in the adult life and has to be as independent as possible and to access meaningful activities. This should be discussed with social care. The final area is about their health. This looks at how the young person will manage or be supported to manage their health as an adult. It will include planning the move from children's health services into adults' health services where needed. This should look at ensuring that professionals understand the young person's needs and plan a well-supported transition. This is vital to ensure that young people are healthy as possible in their adult life.
Preparation for adulthood is all about starting the conversation at year 9 and then every year until the child has left education or their EHC plan has ended. All SENCOs will be responsible for arranging preparation for adulthood conversations for the young person with an EHC plan and inviting all the relevant professionals to the young person's annual review meetings. The preparation for adulthood conversation shouldn't just take place within an annual review. It is important to give young people experiences of what adulthood could look like for them, and this can be done by supporting students with subject choices, work experience, transition visits to specific venues or providers such as colleges, post-16 specialist provision, and additional community-led providers for young people with more complex needs. By having these experiences, the young person can then share their opinion and their preference, which enables their voice to be at the centre of their plan. It is essential that the young person's voice is central to every stage of the plan. It is important to identify who needs to help support the preparation for adulthood discussions and planning. This will be different for every young person, but should include health services, care services, and whether early help or social care is needed, and education providers. Where a young person has a particular need, they may require specialist input, such as rehabilitation work for young people with visual impairment. We need to think about how to support our young people, and we need to develop a transition plan. In Year 9 discussions, they should start to think about this and to create a transition plan that can be developed and focus on the life after education. The plan should regularly be reviewed and added to. It's important that the focus of the plan is on life after education and not only where the next step for education may be. So, before the annual review, it is really important to discuss with the young person their aspirations. The conversation that we have with young people must be led by the young person themselves. It can be done one-to-one or in small groups, and parents will also need to be involved in these discussions where possible. We have produced a template and conversation aids to help with this. This is a transition template, and it includes the 4 areas of preparation for adulthood. It has been designed as a tool to work with the young person and to co-produce their transition plan. It is important to make time to complete this template and ensure that the young person has the appropriate means of communication. This could be verbally, where they express their preferences. They may need additional support, for example, a communication book or a communication aid or symbols. It is also important to complete the template with someone that knows the young person really, really well and allows the young person to feel comfortable in what they want to say and believes that they are the best person to support them. This is the conversation aid that can help prompt the person to think about what they would like and what their future as an adult could involve.
This is the annual review form. It's too small to see on the presentation slide, but the form has been updated with a revised preparation for adulthood section for the young person in Year 9 onwards. This new section covers the 4 areas of preparation for adulthood. This enables the conversations to be more structured and focus on the aspirations of the young person and the steps towards how these can be achieved. It also details a specific plan for the young person as they move towards the end of their education, so everyone to be completely clear on what support may be needed after their education and healthcare plan ends.
It is really important to try and look beyond formal education and to try and think about what adulthood could look like for this young person. Once there is an idea of what they would like, we then have to work backwards and plan how to reach these goals. So, as a young person approaches the transition point, schools and colleges should help them and their families to put in place more detailed planning. It is important that decisions are made early enough for the local authority to consult with new education places and name that place in the EHC plan by the 31st of March in the year that the young person will move.
Information to help young people and their families prepare for the future is on the local offer website. This has a transition to adulthood section, which covers things like housing, independent living, employment, getting around, and help with caring. There's also information about the transition from children's to adult social care on Sheffield City Council's website. Young people and their families can also talk to their social worker, if they have one, about transitioning into adult support.
So, what else do we need to consider in preparation for adulthood? An educational healthcare plan will come to an end at some point in the young person's lives. The EHC plan will end when the young person has achieved their educational outcomes needed to move to adult life, or when they have left further education, either to enter employment or higher education, or because they are over 18 and no longer wish to engage with further learning. This can happen at any point to the age of 25. Conversations should take place with the young person and their family about the EHC plan coming to an end, and a clear plan should then be put in place for what will happen next. Good planning for adult life may identify that lifelong learning may take place without the need for an EHC plan. Needs may be met through alternative plans and support such as community organisations or social care provision. The transition plan should make sure that all different options are available for the young person and have been considered, and a plan has been agreed that is right for them as an adult. We also need to consider the teaching and learning that is required to move forward into adult life. There may be particular specialist teaching that the young person needs that is outside of their study programme curriculum in post-16 education. This needs to be part of their transition plan and identified early. An example of this is if a young person with an EHC plan is accessing an academic or vocational course, they may also need some specific training for managing their independence that would not usually be part of their course if they are going to progress successfully. We need to use the preparation for adulthood paperwork to develop a transition plan that will help identify the next steps and what is needed for future support.
You can find all the paperwork, the preparation for adulthood transition plan, the conversation aids and the updated annual review form on the Inclusion Task Force section of the Learn Sheffield website. If you have any questions about anything covered on anything to do with preparation for adulthood, then please speak to your locality or citywide SENCO. Further guidance about annual reviews is also being provided from January 2020. We've talked a lot today about focusing on the young person and being person-centred, and this will provide advice and tips around this area.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you have found this training useful.